Happy New Year from Stavoren, Netherlands. It's 31st of December, 2025. So we're almost there. In about 30 minutes, we're going to go to these fireworks, uh, sort of, what would you call it? I don't know. But it's a carbide cannon. They use this gas and it makes these very loud cannons. But interestingly, I'm told this is the last year in Netherlands that private citizens will be able to do their own fireworks. Anyway, it's almost 2026, and boy, has 2025 been interesting. And so Masako and I, we went for a walk with Catherine Austin Fitz this morning. I'm still in our studio, and actually Catherine gave us this book a couple hours ago, A History of Money in Ancient Countries. It's quite interesting, and we started looking at it immediately. Alexander Del Mar. This is a 1902 book, actually. This is a reprint. But interestingly, Masako instantly found, actually, I'm sorry, it was this book, also by the same author. This is the book in 1902. It's a history of the precious metals from the earliest times to present, actually. So this is 1902. That mark there, Masako picked it up and started reading through, and she found Darien instantly. Darien Isthmus, Panama. And it's interesting because, back in the 1500s, the Spaniards were down running around Darien and other places, torturing the Indians and whatnot, trying to find out where the gold and silver was. And the Indians actually told the Spaniards, like, why you're torturing and killing? I mean, because the Indians had welcomed them in. The next thing you know, the Spanish are torturing and killing people, trying to find out where the gold and silver is. And the Indians told them to go down. And by the way, the Indians, because Masako and I are out there with them pretty often down in Darien Gap, they still don't like the Spanish from all this. It's passed down through their years. But the Indians told the Spaniards to go down to Peru. And actually, so when, you've read about the big conquest of Peru, I'm sure, before, and Cerro Rico, which is a rich mountain. And that's just like a mountain practically made out of silver. And anyway, this Indians in Darien are the ones that told the Spanish, go to Peru, because that's where it's at. If you want more of this stuff, that's where it's at. Spanish go down there. So we're talking 1500s. And interestingly, this ended up, the Spanish had so much silver from Cerro Rico and a lot of gold too, that the Ming Dynasty over in China, actually, the emperor started using, I don't know if that's in this book because it's just other stuff I know from study over time. But the Ming Dynasty started using silver as a means to pay your taxes, right? So you could no longer pay in rice or whatever, or labor. You had to pay in silver. Anyway, there's a huge silver market with China. All these things that you see going on right now, like there's a lot of dramas in Peru right now based on the silver, because the silver thing is exploding, right? For those who, when I talk about silver and gold, often people are like, oh, they start comparing Bitcoin and all that. Just get out of here with the Bitcoin stuff, right? Let's get down to serious stuff, actually, like really serious. When you look at war, you look at big historical moments in time, those were often fights over silver. Bitcoin is a nothing. It's going to end up blowing away. This has nothing to do with the real world. The real world is gold and silver and many other things, but gold and silver are typically at the centers of these wars. And silver in particular is often an inflection point, things that happen with silver, and things are happening with silver right now. And those who have been following the markets for silver just in the last week have seen some incredible things unfolding, including today, right? On December 31st, 2025, which is when I'm making this from Stavoren, Netherlands. And so I've been studying silver quite a lot, and gold as well, but especially silver, because silver is, and I've been studying it for a couple of years, because, when I'm looking at war, I'm always looking for what should I pay attention to and what should I ignore? Bitcoin ignore, right? It's like, it's interesting. People are going to lose their money on it and all that stuff and make money and all that, right? I first got Bitcoin in 2013. I'm really well aware of it. I've used it a lot. Yeah. I got it. They say the boomer stuff, whatever, have fun with your Bitcoin. But when we get back to the real world about stuff that we watch, now those who followed my war work know how accurate I was with Afghanistan and Iraq. And many times people ask me, and one of those is just the ability to know where to get the right information and what to ignore, which is like 99%, and what to pay attention to, which is, tuning in, right? And one of the things, in the wars, a couple of the types of groups that I would pay attention to, believe it or not, were actually combat camera. Combat camera got to travel around all the battlefields, and so I would talk with those guys all the time. I would talk with medical people all the time because they're talking with all the different soldiers from special operations guys, whoever gets blown up or whatever, and it's in their hospital, they get a feel for what's going on as well on different levels. So medical, and also clergy, like the chaplains, they knew a lot because soldiers would talk to them and priests would talk to me, and chaplains would talk to me. So the chaplains knew a lot what was going on. They knew the morale. I mean, so that's that's one component of the war. Like, what's the military doing? Of course, which is a subcomponent of the larger war. On the larger war, it's routes, resources, and ideology, of course. So, but one of the things that I've learned to pay attention to is the precious metals, silver and gold. I want to know as much as possible about silver and gold, especially even more so silver, although gold's very important. I don't want to discount that like Bitcoin. I'm throwing Bitcoin out the window. That's like nonsense. But when you want to really pay attention to the tides of what are going on, like, you're not going to make batteries out of Bitcoin, right? You're not going to make it. Yeah, that's just nonsense. But when it comes to, when you're trying to figure out where did these waves come from, where did the tides come from? Speaking of tides, I'm near this port in Stavoren, famous port. It's not really used as a port anymore, but historically it was famous in the medieval times. But, when it came time to calculate tides around the world, first of all, it took a long time to figure out that the moon and the sun were even involved, right? And then how do they work together? And then there's these other components of tide, a lot, right? But even when you know what seems to be the biggest, let's say energy sources for the tides or conditions, the things that are creating it, like the gravitational differences between the moon and the sun and all these different things. And there's a lot more. But anyway, but they're still incredibly difficult to predict tides even today, right? There were old calculators in the old days that were, they were not even digital calculators. I mean, they were made out of machines, gears and whatnot, right? Sort of like astrolabes, but for tides. And so people could try to predict those tides, which had, huge, immense, there was many reasons you would want to know the tides, especially in a dangerous waters place like this, or for military reasons or whatever, and trade reasons. But in any case, when you look at gold and silver and these sorts of things, when you look at the way that they behave, like the way silver is behaving now, I don't understand all the behaviors. I'm watching, the waves come up on shore, and you can watch tides come up and go down, but something's happening, and you can see something big is happening sometimes when the waves are big, but to really sort all that out in like a Fourier analysis or whatever, I mean, it's complex. But in any case, what I have learned is studying like the history of silver. Masako just picked this book up, and she just happened to find the Darien, so we started reading a few pages together just a couple of hours ago. And then they're talking about the Indians are sending the Spaniards to Peru. Well, Peru right now could end up being one of the flashpoints of what's happening between the United States and China over silver, right? And where are they talking about this? 1500s. This book is from 1902. So the study of these things is absolutely vital. Of course, China is a big producer of silver. Mexico is a big producer of silver. Peru has massive reserves of silver, right? So, I mean, this is, anyway, bottom line is some people are waiting on me. I got to go. I wanted to put a video out, but I would, spend significant time studying not just precious metals as if, a way to store wealth and that sort of thing, or as an investment if people are going to take that sort of route. But I'm talking about the history and how they affect other things, how they affect nations and how they deal with each other, how they affect wars, right? So there's a lot more to it than silver coins. There's a lot more to it than gold coins. There's a lot more to it. These things are the medium through which information travels. Like right now, silver's going radical. There's a lot of, turbulence in that silver sea, and the gold as well, palladium, platinum. But I'm watching the silver as closely as I can. I got to go. They're waiting on me. We're going to go watch these giant carbide cannons. If they don't overload my microphones, maybe I can publish some later. They might click out, though, because I'm not using 32-bit microphones. But anyway, Happy New Year. Hopefully I'll put up another video tonight with Misako. We got some things that we'd like to talk about. Talk with y'all later. Bye.